6 things, right? And the first thing is, what's the nature of the vow? So you've got a condensed version of the 4 different positions, summarized into 2, mental or physical. So think about it, yeah? And if you want to do the reading, there's a whole bunch of information in there about how to consider when you make a promise, how that promise results into your world, and where it can be grown, so you can water over there, yeah? So we've covered that in the first part. The second part he covers is the category. So there's 8 different vows. So I'll just give you them as a summary. Well, you can divide them into 2 things, which comes into the next class. You can say, well, there are vows relating to lay people or people that have not yet left their home life. And that could be code also, which is above the line. And then there are vows or commitments that the Buddha spoke right throughout his time, and they were written down in all of the 9 sutras, that relate to people that are ordained, people that have left their home life. So there's certain vows to grow for beings that have decided to outwardly renounce a certain way of being. It doesn't mean that you're leaving mummy and daddy. It means that you leave a certain way of living. And then there are vows for those that have gone all the way and decided to have a monastic lifestyle. And so those vows are specific to those people. And we can't learn them because I don't know them, because you only learn them if you're ordained. Okay? So I can teach you a summary or grouping, but I'm not even allowed to go and get them until I learn, until I become ordained.
How come the nuns have so many more than monks?
Huh?
How come the nuns have so many?
It's so interesting. That's a great question. Okay, and not only that, if you notice, you've got a novice nun's vow, and then intermediate. Yeah, and they've got all these extras because they can do way more than us merely men. Is one answer. Some people say that maybe guys don't need to work as hard to get enlightened. But I don't think that. You know, being of my disposition, you probably know my position on this. But it's just the way that the vows, it's just what was spoken at the time of the Buddha, what became the vows. So that they had to jump through a different kind of intermediate nuns vows, for example. I don't really know if there's a reason, to be honest, because I'm not allowed to know a whole bunch of things about monastics.
No, I'm not going to say it.
You can say
No.
it. Okay.
Private.
But then, you know, there are ways of looking at the vows, and then there are ways of looking at the vows. Because we're talking about pratik moksha vows. Yeah?
What's the 8 and 24 hours? There are 8 different one-day vows that you can take.
There are 8 vows that make up. We'll talk about that first. We're going to go through this list together, and I hope to cover up to 4 today. Yeah, in 15 minutes. So we, the first vow is a one-day vow that you can take. We'll cover that in a second. Then you've got lifetime layman's or lay people's vows, male and female do the same vows. And then you can do novice monks and nuns. They're roughly the same in nature. And intermediate nuns, they get a little extra because they can do more magical things than we can. And then you get fully ordained monks and nuns. 364 and 253. Okay. So that's generally the 8, right? So now we're going to start on to ACI 9, class 4. So I'm jumping 2 classes because last week we did the 108 Lives project, right? Did that come through or not yet? Here it comes. So let's talk about that one-day vow. I'll give you a quick summary now, and it's enough for you to get an essence of what they are, okay? The one-day vow, it's really the essence the best I can give you the essence is that for 24 hours, you're walking around like somebody who's in nirvana. The point of this vow, for 24 hours, imagine you are enlightened. I'm walking around, looking and interacting with my world as if I am an arhat. Yeah, as if I have reached enlightenment. nirvana. Yeah? And so what kind of behavior would come out of a being, what kind of verbal and physical behavior would come out of a being and their basis, right, of a being who is walking the planet like that. And so the idea, you could say, is that if you do those one-day vows enough, a certain propensity grows in you to maybe result in that thing. Yeah, so that's the first of the vows. And there's two parts, just because we're today. There's the primary four and the secondary four. So obviously the stronger, the more powerful of the two, if you like, or the ones that give you the it's called the four primary vows, is refraining from any sexual activity. Yeah. And in the 10, you call them sexual misconduct, but it's not that exactly. This is Sangchu. It means not clean. It's something about the way you hold your mind. But to even forget going there at all is remove yourself from seeing yourself as a sexual being. No sexual activity. Physical, right? And verbal, but along with its basis. Right? For 24 hours.
Just so I understand that these are all one-day vows that you're giving us right now. These four
I'm sharing with you, out of the 8 kinds of vows, the first of the 8 kinds of vows that constitute the vows in the Vinaya. And the first one of those is this group of vows called one-day vows.
Okay.
Yeah? And that means for one day,
You have no sexual activity anywhere.
excellent. In your brain or in your
Or
job
in your
strap.
heart.
Yeah. The next one is not stealing, not taking, it's mudging them, not taking what's given, what's not given. Not taken, given, right? Not taking what's not given. So for an entire day, you walk around looking at the opposite of that, respecting everybody's property to the end. And this brings the question, right? To what degree? Yeah. At what point does it become stealing? When I go to Little Skips, I have a cup of coffee, and since I grew a moustache, I take 3 napkins instead of 1. Right? Is that stealing?
No, because you have a big moustache.
Well, you didn't have a big moustache when we steal. No. If you take a pen from work, if you take 2 pens from work, if you don't return all of the change to your friend, if you're going to, if these get you to enlightenment, right, you better do them properly, right? So then all these questions come, and it's not, the point is not to get stuck in the, what if I did this and if I did that, right? It's obviously you're walking around with the intention that you are living like an enlightened, like a person in nirvana, yeah? A person that's free from samsara. And respecting other beings' properties is one thing, but then you've got to know at what point do you come to the edge of your promise? At what point do you come? At what point have you had sexual activity in your mind, for example? Because that's way difficult to restrain from, right? So, at what point did you take what wasn't given? And there is a measurement that they gave that relates to, I don't know what year, in ancient India, BC, and then the Tibetans spent years calculating it, and then one king in Tibet decided that we should convert all the measurements in Vinaya, the measurements of length, the measurements of money, the measurements of this, into the currency of the time. So they spent like a huge national project figuring out the conversion rates. And we can't figure those out in the commentary because it's like at least 300-400 years ago. So, but the essence, when Geshe Michael asked Ken Rinpoche, who if anybody knew about Vinaya, it would have been Ken Rinpoche. It's somewhere between 10 cents and a quarter. They figured out is the flavor of the things, anything of value, right? And now If we have conventional reality, what's value? Value to who? You know, did little skips intend with a big stack of things for people to take them? So did I not break it? I don't think I did. Right? Anyway, so this is interesting. Refraining from killing, and it's very specific. There's no if, buts, or whatever. Not if, ands, or buts about it. Right? In the Vinaya scriptures and throughout Buddhist philosophy in all schools, it says killing a human or a human fetus. And what they're saying there is, as soon as the egg and sperm meet, you have consciousness in there, it is a human life. So that position is pretty clear. You can ask the Dalai Lama, etc. So for those 24 hours, refraining from killing a human or a human fetus.
Super difficult.
For you. And for 24 hours, it's refraining from speaking falsely. Yeah? We call it lying. But when you go back to the idea of at what point am I breaking it? At what point am I coming to the edge? If I'm trying to grow this vow, at what point am I maneuvering on the edge of giving you a false impression because I want you to think a certain way about me?
But it's also not, you don't want it's going to harm the person.
Correct. Because if you are walking around as an ahar, right, then for one person, but this is really the essence of Vinaya, right? Coming to terms of when these things are flexible, but to what degree. So, for example, alcohol, which is coming, I think, for the monks, which we'll cover later, and nuns, that's a non-negotiable. It's like it's not one you could. So, and sexual misconduct.
Kombucha.
Kombucha. What about kombucha? Exactly. Is it fermented and so on? We have to get to the essence of them. If you take them as rules to keep up a thing for the sake of a thing, then you're going to see it as trouble. If you understand and you can really maneuver that horse, before you can get that horse on its back and stretch its legs and do the yoga, that horse of your mind, you're going to have some attempts at taming it that aren't going to work. Without those, you're not going to know, right? So each of us have to come, for you it might be this and for you it might be that, right? Let's look at the secondary four and then we'll have a little discussion. This one is seat. Actually, for those of you who have been in Nepal, the word here is mel, which refers to that thing. If you've been to Nepal, it's that thing that the children and the parents sit on. It's that bed seat thing. So it could mean seat, it could mean bed. Yeah? It's that little bamboo thing that we all sat on in Nepal with the people in the tent village. So that's what they're referring to. And it's making that lofty or expensive. It means indulging in luxuries. It means for 24 hours, go back to the most basic existence you can have.
You can sit on a seat and then you just can't make you fancy.
Yeah, you can sit. Yeah, but you see that you don't want to get... Yeah. Do not sit. No, literally the word means that lofty seat dash bed, that thing, lofty that. But the meaning, verbally passed down, that's why you have a lineage, is indulging in luxury. And the beautiful thing about seat meaning bed is that you could say, if you're a Tibetan teacher, if you're a monk, then you enjoy the throne and the seats.
Right.
Yeah, or the place where you lay your body and relax. Yeah, so interesting. Alcohol and intoxicants, and the Vinaya is also very clear on things. What was the word? Brought about by chemicals. Yeah, or something like this, or alcohol or intoxicants brought about by chemicals. So it's talking about drugs and alcohol. Yeah, and you gotta look. Let's go to the next one. Get people acting wild. It's the best I could do it because there's a whole series of things that it refers to specifically. It refers to wearing garlands, which is what you do when you're having a big party. Yeah, it refers to music, dancing, and so on. So now that we've got the 8, If you can keep these for 24 hours, the promise is that you're going to get closer to nirvana, right? You can have these one-day vows, pretending you're in nirvana, acting as if you're in nirvana, refraining from any sexual activity, or taking what's not given, or killing, etc. In fact, looking at the world through the opposite. So then the question comes, well, what about religious dancing or music? What about music that moves the heart, right? Would an our heart not listen to music? And so you come to some understanding of what it would be like to grow this vow. Is it just Mozart that we should be listening to, the Requiem Mass? Or, could it be, I know for Geshe Michael, if he listened to Jimi Hendrix, it would be a spiritual experience. And so could he as an arhat be listening to Jimi Hendrix? But for me, it might not work, you see. I can give you the flavor for what I learned about the acting wild. And that is that thing, and it's actually the same for alcohol or intoxicants. It's that thing which will disturb your state of mind so much that it would remove your inhibition from having complete focus when you need to. Yeah, so if you're musically inclined, for example, and you've been raging and you've got this awesome tune happening in your mind, and you've been like at it for the whole day, maybe with your headphones and the rest, and you're on this 24-hour vow, and then you sit down to meditate, don't tell me that you'll be able perfectly to quiet your mind and not have it continue. You see, if it's disturbing the meditation, if it's disturbing the capacity of your mind to focus on reality, then it's not working. It's breaking it. But it might be awesome music. That doesn't mean it's not awesome music.
So it's kind of like another intoxicant. But if the thing is not functioning,
But
it's an intoxicant.
you get, Acting Wild was the best I could summarize the entire list of things,
Do you happen to know the Tibetan, which is literal?
Sok, Tren, Sok, Garsen, Trotsen. Okay, I can do that. It's dancing, singing, playing music, wearing flower garlands, perfumes, jewelry, cosmetics.
Wow.
No flowers on my beard. But the essence is, for 24 hours, you behave like you don't need that stimuli. That's all. It doesn't mean that flowers are bad. It doesn't mean, for me, encountering the vows from a Tibetan tradition was very difficult because I came from a Catholic tradition where all I associated with vow morality was I'm in trouble again. I have to go to the priest and now I'm in trouble again and I'll be punished and God will put me in hell. It was like that for me. So coming to terms with vow morality took me, I want to say, a good 7 years before I genuinely had a moment where 7 years is not a short time when you're trying something, because the time period between the action and the result being 7 years, you sort of forget what you did to make that happen. But it took that much chipping away at vows before I got a sense that it's not the way I used to think about vows. When you put vows as in the thing that creates that continuum in you to see your world as a perfected, enlightened, big place, and you as a being in that place, in the same way as you are sure about who you are today and you are sure about the world we live in today, with that much certainty or more, because we have a sense of not knowing in our current world what's going to happen tomorrow. And the vows are the only ticket there. If you see it that way, and you have enough understanding of how your mind projects reality onto this field of a pregnant field of possibility, that it could be pain or it could be bliss, and it could be either, and it can be both, and it could be all. If you can see all that as an enlightened being, caused by your habituation of your vows, the way you hold yourself in your mind, then vows seem very different. Then refraining from acting wild means, okay, I'm stopping that addictive Hector behavior that says, I'm a little bit itchy now, I'll just check my Facebook. You know what I mean? So that could be acting wild. That discomfort of sitting alone for a minute going, I better do something. That could be acting wild. That could be breaking this vow for me. Because if I was an arhat, if I was a person in nirvana, I would be experiencing myself in this world without that itch to go, where do I get my next satisfaction from? Yeah? And alcohol and intoxicants, besides the meditation thing, it's the basis for all your perceptions is your mind. So anything, any intoxicant or alcohol, any fermented anything, even kombucha, yeah?
And
If-
coffee.
And coffee, if he didn't say coffee. No, I see it. If I experience coffee as altering the state of my mind, then I'm not keeping this vow. Yeah? If I take this vow. Indulging, you see that same nature as acting wildly, indulging in like, oh, I'll just have another whatever champagne or whatever the luxury is for us. So if all these things have a direct result into a reality of your experience, the way to think about these vows is imagine the opposite of let's go stealing, yeah, of having things, of protecting other people's things. If that's the seed you're planting, if refraining from doing our human impulse to take what other people's things are, if you go even beyond that and give to others and you're planting that in your mind, then imagine the field that would arise from that. And the more you habituate, the same with telling truths, the same with protecting life, etc., etc. The same about holding that energy we call sexuality and directing it powerfully when it's right, or just wasting it. I think there's one more I'll cover.
Wait, why don't you?
Eating afternoon.
Did I?
Yes.
What was the last?
Eating
Eating
after.
afternoon.
Oh, you get it, right? The eighth one is to stop. Sorry, I totally missed that. Is acting wild, eating after. You get that? That's nothing special.
Is mitsanchu, is that automatically imply sexual activity, or is it just not clean?
No, the words are not clean, but it's taught through the lineage. It refers to sexual activity.
Okay, so
It says refraining from sexual
if I
activity.
went up,
Any sexual.
if I when I go home to a Tibetan friend, if I say mitsanchu, he's gonna
Not clean, he'll know it refers to sexual activity
Okay.
if he's a Dharma student. I'm not sure in colloquial Tibetan whether
Okay.
it's coded the same way, to be honest. And refraining from eating after noon, and there's a whole chapter on Vinaya on how to measure noon by putting the stick in the ground and sitting in the shadow, blah blah blah. The whole measurement of time becomes really important if you know you're going to break this vow, right? So it's true. Now we can just look at our computers, iPhones. I was thinking about that, so what, you stop eating after lunchtime. But imagine actually being an arhat and not needing to think about food after lunch. Like just not even having to have it in your radar. So comes lunchtime, you're done. You don't have to think where you're going to get your next meal. You don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to clean anything. You don't have to. And eventually imagine you don't get hungry at all because you get habituated. So that's that. Thank you for that. This is by the way, not in the Vinaya, but a Mahayana one-day vow. So we're in the Mahayana tradition. These still are taken in Tibet all the time, and in our tradition, this is called Mahayana purification vow. That's very different. It's not very different. It's not the one I just talked about. The one I just talked about is the one-day vow. Yeah, 24 hours, 8
8 ideas. This is the Mahayana purification vow. Do they look similar? They look exactly the same, right? So what's the difference?
Can you explain the bottom? If you take the lower vow.
Yeah, I'll get that in a second. But what's the difference between the one-day vow I just talked about and the Mahayana purification one-day vow?
You don't have 2 categories. You're dealing with
Bodhicitta.
Awesome. That's all. Well, that's one of the main differences. The one certainly that we talk about here is the motivation for taking them is for the sake of every living being. So you're sitting here going, okay, I am refraining from sexual activity, not to pretend to walk around like somebody in nirvana, but so it would cause my Buddhahood so I could share it with other beings and get them enlightened too. So the motivation is very different. It's much broader. The activity is exactly the same. Yeah? And so that should also pose a whole ton of questions about if I'm going to invest in vows.
Why not make it?
Well, exactly, right? If you're going to do the activity, well, why not get a bigger result?
Are these vows that somebody would, like the other ones, take every day? Like this also for Mahayana vows, that someone would wake up and take these vows every single day for the rest of their life?
No, because that's the lifetime vows. You could take these for a 24-hour period. These are given for 24 hours, and the idea is that the vow begins when the sun sets, and they end when you can see the palm of your hand because the light is bright enough, for example. So if you're sitting there in the middle of the night and you can't see your hand, and then dawn comes and you can see your hand, that's when the vow's finished. That's when you can...
That's not 24 hours
From sunset.
Yeah,
that's true. It's not 24
and you wouldn't
hours.
even have to eat after
Yeah.
noon. That's
That's true. I hadn't thought about that, but that's what their answer is when the sun rises the following day. Maybe it is 24 hours.
So I misunderstood from the text because I don't remember reading from the Mahayana purification vows for the same. And I only remember reading the part that said the 24-hour vows were something that someone would repeatedly take every day. Anyways, they would just retake them every morning.
You could, but how long do you want to do that for? At some point, which explains the bottom part, you want to take a higher vow, like we just talked about Hinayana, Mahayana motivation to a vow that will give you a different result. There are other vows you can take, which means you're not retaking them over and over. You could retake them every day,
So how do you take the vows?
You get them from somebody that's got them.
Okay, so you go to someone and ask 3 times, please give me one day vow, this, that, and the other.
Or you can just practice them yourself. We'll get to how you take the vows in the next class.
Okay.
Yeah, because you've got to be right for taking the vows. The person giving you the vows has to be qualified enough to. There's all this structure. And when we get to the monastics, it's even more difficult. There's all these prerequisites and requirements. I want to rush and give you 5 more minutes so we can finish class 4, if that's okay. And then next week in review. So the bottom here is, for example, if you take the 1-day Mahayana vow, there's an instruction in the Vinaya that says you can't take a lower vow in those 8, right? No, 8 sets of vows. You had the lay people at the top, and remember that? Mm-hmm. If you take a certain kind of vow, you can't go back and take a shorter one because it sort of destroys your higher motivation. Yeah? So when we're thinking about a Mahayana 1-day vow, if you've taken them, you can't go back and say, I'll practice being in nirvana for 24 hours. It will sort of damage your Mahayana vow. That's all that's saying. It also is important, which is one of the differences we were talking, I was going to add to Teddy's, because of that, it makes the vow slightly different to the other one, not just the motivation. The fact that once you've taken it, then you can't really take the other one. You should take the lifetime layman's vows, which is what we're covering now. You should all know these somehow. Again, it's the same idea: no killing, human or fetus, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, predominantly taking other people's partners, alcohol or intoxicant. And in all my time giving vows or taking vows,
I've had lots of people ask me, can I take this and not that? Can I do all of them minus the alcohol? Can I do the, and you're going to have an effect, but the Vinaya in no place says it's okay to do that. Okay? But every action will have a result. Yeah. But if any of them are going to be dropped out, in our lineage at least, alcohol is not the one to drop out because it is the one, the basis, the motivating karma that would get you to do all the other stupid things because you're not with it.
Exactly.
So if you're going to choose not to take one, it can't be alcohol because it's alcohol that lets the mind wander so much that you'd be stupid enough to do something.
I was recently with a Lama who was talking about this, and he was talking about alcohol. There was a monk who was forced to be in a situation where he was giving an ultimatum between 3 different things. One was to kill an animal, one was to sleep with a woman, one was to drink. He made the decision, I'll surely drink, that'll be the one. Well, he drank, slept with a woman. He used it to elucidate exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why that one is sort of non-negotiable. Yeah. In addition, when you take the lifetime layperson's vow, man or woman, which is section 2 and 3 out of the 8, part 2 and 3 out of the 8, you're also committing to not breaking the advices of going for refuge. So you'll say, taking refuge, the Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, etc., Sangha jewel. In particular, it just means the Dharma jewel, which is understanding how not hurting others functions. I'll cover that better next time. And in addition, again, killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, or intoxicants, if you're inciting other people to do those things on your behalf, you're breaking the vow. Yeah.
So when you say, however, you're for me, you're breaking the vow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're inciting them to do it. If you've taken the vows. If you didn't take the vows, you can't break them because you don't have them. Yeah? Okay. Just to be clear, because it doesn't mean now you walk out of this house and go, oh my God, there's drink, don't look at the drink, don't wear garlands. It's not that. We're talking about making a personal commitment that for a period of time, I'm not doing this behavior. When the period of time is over, it's okay, unless you've taken vows. So if you have the vows, don't do the stuff you vowed not to do. If you don't have them, it's still probably good idea not to go killing humans, stealing things. It's probably a great idea. Yeah. But you're not destroying the potential of your own nirvana. The 3 categories in the 13 novice monks and nuns vows are the 4 root that we just talked about, sex, stealing, killing, lying. The 6 secondary, and they say 6 because they split dancing and they add 2 from that list of garlands and dancing and in the acting wild section, and the 3 transgressions. And in there, I don't know enough about them, but there's stuff like going against the advice of or disrespecting the person that gave you the vows is one of them. Disclosing any activity that you do in rituals of the Naya. What else did I write in there? Once you've taken a monk's or nun's vow to be the representative of the Buddha in form, if you like, then going on and wearing makeup and going to a nightclub, it would be breaking that vow. Unless the person giving you vows gives you specific instructions that for a 10-day period, a month, or a lifetime, you are to do something other for these transgressions or some other things. Example, Geshe Michael being told by his teacher, you do not have to wear monk's robes, go and work in the diamond district. Yeah? That is a high, so then it becomes this hierarchy, understanding the hierarchy of what supersedes what and what's unbreakable. For example, for the monks, the 4 root, the sexual, stealing, lying, etc., particularly the sexual commitment is not negotiable. Yeah? So there's no point. There's at no point. The example they use in the text is if a woman comes up to a monk and says, "If you don't have sex with me, I'll kill myself." Yeah, you're placed in a quandary, and if you think that you will help by having sex with them, like there really isn't any situation where you have to have sex with someone to anyway, you know. But if you ended up in that quandary, they say you should return your monk's vows first. Say, I'm done with them, and then do the deed that would save that woman. Yeah.
And then you go repay.
And then you're like, okay,
Huh?
I'll reset.
Once you've given up your monks,
That's it. Too late. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're done. So you have to live a certain kind of life. So these are.
But that would be the advice.
That's the advice. That's a yeah. You would if you had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you really thought she was going to do it, and you really wanted to save her life, you would return your mouth and then have sex. And she was really okay. Thank you for staying a little longer. We covered 2 classes in one. That's why it was heavy. But you get the essence, right? Remember the motivation we started with. These are things that if you grow them in your mind, if they become a habit, if you form them well, they will create an experience as solid and as real as you think you are solid and real now, even more so. And we name that nirvana. It is free from afflictions.
Sashi
Bukir Jishim Metotram Bira Binshin Empagi Sangde Shindu Miterwagi Dropin Nanda Shimla Chivasho Idam Guru Ratnamandala Kamini Atayami Evadi Devogu Sunam Yeshe Tsososhin Sunam Yeshe Lejumwe Rampaguni Jopasho. Thank you for letting me teach.
Thank you for
Thank you for
teaching.
teaching.
Please
We
stand.
learned today.